He looked at Minho, his voice eerily calm. You lied. Minho. Wait. I wasn't going to do anything with them. It was just a scare tactic. Jungkook didn't respond. Instead, he threw the phone on the ground, shattering it under his heel. Then he turned to Taejan. Jungkook, where does he keep the backups? Laptop? Cloud? Taejan stammered. I I don't know. Maybe his laptop. He keeps everything on that. Jungkook's eyes flickered to the desk in the corner of the room. In two strides, he was there, opening the laptop and demanding the password. A single glare from Jungkook had him spelling it immediately. Jungkook wiped the entire system, leaving the laptop useless. Once finished, he closed the laptop with a loud snap and turned back to Minho. Jungkook, if I find out you have kept anything, even one photo, you will regret it. And if you ever contact her again, he didn't finish the sentence, but the unspoken threat hung heavy in the air. Minho nodded frantically, tears forming in his eyes. I won't. I swear. Jungkook ignored him, walking over to Vine. His expression softened slightly as he looked at her. Let's go now. This time, Vine didn't hesitate. She followed him out of the apartment, her heart racing. The tension in the elevator was thick, neither of them speaking as they went down. And when they stepped into the car, Jungkook took a few heavy breaths, staying silent, looking at the front. Then he asked finally, Why didn't you tell me? Vine glanced at him, her hands twisting in her lap. I'm sorry. I thought you have nothing to do with me, except when others are looking. Jungkook looked at her with red eyes, but they softened as they saw how scared and sad she was about those words. The words didn't just make him angry, they broke her heart too. His eyes softened and he looked away. Jungkook, must be my fault again. You should know that you are my responsibility now, whether someone is looking or not. Wine turned to him and couldn't stop herself from spilling. Wine, you say that in front of me, and then your mother tells me to keep my head down, that you don't care so I shouldn't cause any problems. Didn't you ask her to say this to me? She asked, her voice laced with anger. Jungkook's knuckles tightened on the steering wheel. His mother's words stung more than he let on. Jungkook, I didn't. Wine. You think that will make me believe it? Jungkook went close to her, holding her shoulders. He made her turn to him and said, I didn't. She doesn't decide what I care about. Next time, whenever something happens, you come to me no matter what others say. Understand? Vine looked at him, surprised by the firmness in his tone. For the first time, she saw a glimpse of someone who wasn't indifferent, someone who might actually care. She looked in his eyes, unable to say anything. A few seconds, and Jungkook left her slowly. Jungkook, I'm sorry. Let's go home, he said and started the car, the hum of the engine filling the silence as they drove away. But Vine couldn't help but feel a strange sense of safety. As she stared out the window, her mind replayed everything. Jungkook hadn't just stepped in to save her, he stood up for her in a way no one else ever had. It left her confused and unsettled. When they arrived, Jungkook parked the car and stepped out without a word. Vine followed him into the elevator, clutching her bag tightly. She couldn't tell if he was angry or still exhausted from everything. Once they were inside the penthouse, Jungkook finally broke the silence. Jungkook, you should rest now. Do you need anything? Water, food? Vine blinked, startled by his question. No, I'm fine. Thank you. Jungkook nodded and ran a hand through his hair, clearly unsure of what to say. Jungkook. About what my mother said, she had no right to talk to you like that. I will handle her. Ryan's eyes widened in surprise. You will? Jungkook. Yes. What she said was wrong, and I'm sorry you had to hear it. But you need to understand something. I didn't marry you because of her. This is our life now. Not hers, not anyone else. His words caught her off guard, and for a moment she didn't know how to respond. Why? I, I don't know what to say. I didn't think you would care at all. Jungkook. I might not be the best at showing it, but that doesn't mean I don't care. She looked at him without saying anything. To make things, to not make things any more awkward, he said, It's late. Get some rest. We will figure things out tomorrow, he said and started walking away. Jungkook, she called loudly, making him stop and turn back. Wine, I will try to come to you next time. Not just next time, but every time I need you. Jungkook looked at her, and then a small smile appeared on his lips. He nodded and turned back away again, fading away from her eyes. The sound of muted rain tapping against the windows filled the cozy living room. Jungkook was standing against the window, peacefully watching the rain drop on the window until Wine came behind him to ruin his peace. Wine sat on the floor by the coffee table, sleeves rolled up, putting together the pieces of a puzzle that was, at this point, more frustrating than fun. Her frustrated groan made him turn back and look at her. Jungkook, why did you even buy this? Wine didn't look up, her brow furrowed in concentration. Wine, because it's supposed to be relaxing, team building, or something like that. Jungkook snorted. You look like you're about to throw it out the window. Wine glanced at him, a playful smirk tugging at at her lips. If you're so smart, why don't you come help? He raised an eyebrow. Why would I help? I've got more entertaining things to do. She shot him a mock glare before turning back to the puzzle. You're just scared because you'd be terrible at it. That got his attention. He straightened up, setting his phone aside. Excuse me? I'm great at puzzles. Wine leaned back on her hands, grinning. Prove it then. Jungkook plopped down next to her, looking at the half-finished puzzle. Jungkook. Fine. Move over, amateur. She raised her hands in mock surrender, shifting to give him space. He picked up a piece and squinted at the image as he asked, This is supposed to be a castle? It looks like a smudge. It's called subtlety, Wine said with a laugh. Jungkook. It's called bad art, he said, trying to force the piece into a spot where it clearly didn't belong. Wine. Okay, stop. Wine grabbed his wrist, laughing. You're not even trying to match the shapes. Jungkook. I'm just testing your patience, he said with a grinning smile. Wine rolled her eyes but couldn't hide her smile. Wine. You're terrible at this. Jungkook. You gotta admit I'm creative. He picked up another piece. Wine. Creative isn't shoving pieces together and hoping for the best. She teased, grabbing the piece from his hand. Hey, he protested, lunging for it. Wine twisted away, holding the piece high above her head. Jungkook. You think I wouldn't reach there? He said and straightened up to get the piece. But as she moved back, he did the same to catch it, and fell on her in the process. She closed her eyes as she fell on her back, with Jungkook right above her. She gasped as she opened her eyes and looked at him, looking at her. Their eyes met, and they froze for a minute, their heartbeats syncing with each other. After a moment, she blinked and looked away. Fine. Uh, when are you getting up? Jungkook blinked and came into his senses. He quickly sat up and cleared his throat, the embarrassment killing him. Wine looked at the piece of puzzle that was in his hand. Wine, give it back, she demanded, reaching for it. Jungkook looked at his hand and moved it away from her. Jungkook, you have to earn it. He laughed as she climbed onto his lap in an attempt to grab it. Wine, I will bite you, she threatened, her fingers clawing at his hand. Jungkook, you wouldn't dare. Wine, oh, I would. Before he could react, she leaned in, pretending to bite his shoulder. He yelped dramatically, dropping the puzzle piece. Jungkook, okay, okay, you win. He laughed, pushing her off. She picked the piece from the floor and waved it in front of his face as she said, that's what you get for underestimating Jungkook. You're ridiculous. He shook his head, but unable to stop laughing. Fine. And yet you married me. She finally placed the piece in its correct spot. Jungkook chuckled. Remind me to never challenge you again. Fine. Wise choice. The rain continued to fall outside, but inside the room was filled with laughter and a sense of ease that felt new but comfortable.